Hey friends, I'm Sophie Case, creator of mycuprunsover.ca, a place where busy women find tips for cultivating simpler, more sustainable lives, homes, and homeschools. My guest today is Brett Monk, a homeschooling dad and writer and director of Mount Hideaway Mysteries, Exes, and Oh No's. Mount Hideaway is a family-friendly mystery movie produced by a team of mostly college-age homeschool grads. And today we're going to talk about the film and the potential business model for other homeschoolers keen to produce their own feature films. Brett, thanks so much for joining me on the blog today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Brett, you have had quite an eclectic career. You started out directing for TV news. You produced training films. You served as a pastor for 10 years, and now you are working full time as a filmmaker and digital marketing strategist. So, what inspired you to create Mount Hideaway, which is your first full length movie?
Sure. Well, I would say the motivation to create this movie was kind of twofold. One of the biggest motivations, to be honest, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is just in the evening, sitting in front of the TV, flipping through channels, and even things like Netflix and Amazon, trying to find something that you can watch that is enjoyable, that's got some action and plot drama and stuff like that, but also doesn't immediately go to the profanity and gratuitous,
Mm-hmm.
sexual situations and things that don't fit with a lot of our worldviews and lifestyles, and also just aren't entertaining. At the end of a
Mm-hmm.
hard day, you just want to watch a fun movie, and just it's grown harder and harder to find a movie that really fits that zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so also, I just found that a lot of things have changed in the whole media world right now. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. But I feel like we're in like a really interesting, opportune moment in history where there is the ability to go out and just make your own movie if you have the skills and have access to the different resources that it takes to do that. And so I'd been working with a group of folks doing some little short films and things like that. And one thing really just led to another. And the result was a full length feature movie that's now distributed in 60 countries on a lot of the streaming platform.
It's funny because at the opening of the movie, you're actually in the movie, right? You have a little cameo
I,
at the
I, I gave
beginning
myself a little, yeah, just a little part.
as a homeschooling dad. So that was probably a pretty natural fit for
Exactly.
you.
Exactly. That was so fun.
And, in that role, you're actually teaching the kids, based on your vocation as a spy in the
Right.
movie. And I kind of just had this image of you just now when you're talking as a homeschooling dad, also teaching his kids, and his kids' friends this vocation of filmmaking. So it's
Well,
pretty
that is
cool.
that is very much the case, and it was just really just such a neat experience because, as I mentioned to you offline, my wife and I had been on the adoption journey for a couple of years as we were starting to make this movie, and our daughter, who we adopted at age 13 out of the foster care system, came to be with us right in the middle of the production. And
Mm.
so it was just so precious to see the crew of this movie, and many of whom were from a homeschooling background and quite a few from our home church, just embraced my daughter. And
Mm.
the film family became a part of her new family, and she just embraced them, and it very quickly became, and is becoming even more, making these films is part of her homeschool experience and a part of a
Mm.
very valid trade education. And so she's not so much interested in hair in acting, but she's interested in hair and makeup and some of the behind the
Mm.
scenes things. She's a real people person, maybe even doing some of the producing, making phone calls and stuff like
Mm.
that. And so I was already motivated and connected to young homeschoolers and homeschool grads in their 20s, and other homeschool parents who are our friends. But the experience of becoming an actual homeschool dad while we were making the movie, it was almost one of those art prophesies real life kind of things.
That's so cool. And it set you up to make that decision, right? It was probably wasn't a big leap for you since you were already working with homeschoolers. Why
Very much so.
so you did make this movie with a tiny crew and a tiny budget, and most of the people you worked with were either homeschooling high schoolers or graduates, recent graduates. So why was it so important for you to work with homeschoolers? Like if you weren't already a homeschooling dad, why did you have that passion?
So I directed and co-wrote the movie along with Michaela, who you see as the star in the movie. And when Michaela and we had met on a film set, doing a couple of short films, actually with an old friend of mine who was a homeschool grad and had just started
Mm,
or had been teaching classes to homeschoolers on film or
okay.
making films. And
Mm,
so I heard that he was doing this, and I'd been doing TV and different types of film projects forever. So I went out on one of his film sets and just helped the kids out. I was so impressed with just the ingenuity and the brilliance that was going on there. And on one of these film sets, I met Michaela, and the two of us just really developed a neat working chemistry. And
mm,
so we started doing so, and my wife and I actually hired Michaela to work for our real estate company. That's my wife's full time job. And so Michaela and I started doing little short film projects here and there and trying to beef up our acting reels and things. And one thing just kind of led to another. And we got to a point where we were like, wow, we've done these different short films, and it wouldn't really be much of a leap to like if we took the effort we'd put into the short film and just multiplied that by about 4 or 5 times, we could make something really, really legitimate looking. Um, and
mhm,
so and so one thing really just kind of led to another. And I'd also have to say that sometimes you do something and you just feel like God inhabits it and breathes life into it and just starts pulling things into it that go way past anything you had ever dreamed. And that was also exactly what had kind of happened with the movie. As we
mm,
started looking for places to film, because when you're an indie filmmaker, one of the biggest things is the locations. Do you just,
right.
just shooting a whole film in your backyard or out in the woods? It doesn't always give the film enough, of that cinematic look. And
Mhm,
in my small hometown in the Shenandoah Valley, I was out visiting some different friends. And to make a long story short, a lot of businesses in the Shenandoah Valley started saying, "Oh, you're making a movie? You want to come use my store? Do you want to come at my farm? Look, I've got this huge farm and orchard," which you see many of the
mm,
shots were
mm,
at this beautiful farm and orchard and fruit stand that they have there. Just some dear friends of mine, folks that I was in marching band with in junior high school. And so all of these people from the Shenandoah Valley area just started offering resources and
mm,
saying, would you like to use this as a location? We got a great contact with Shenandoah University in Winchester, and they've got a big musical theater program. We had auditions there and got some brilliant, brilliant young actors to join the crew. Historical sites that usually you're not able to film in were contacting me and saying, "Hey, I heard about your film. Would you like to come and use this location?" So it just it started off just as this tiny little almost experiment, and it just felt like God breathed a lot of life into it, and it's grown into something that I hope could actually not just be a neat film that lots of people will enjoy, but really could inspire other folks that are folks in small town, especially
mm,
homeschoolers, because we
mhm,
have that entrepreneurial mindset,
yeah.
to do more of this. And so my vision is that one day, if enough folks like us get together and make movies, then when I sit down in front of the TV, I'll have stuff I want to watch.
So we watched the movie last weekend with another family. So of course there was like 10 of us,
Okay.
just two families, and we had 8 kids from 2 to 12. And
Okay.
one thing that they really loved about it was seeing characters in the movie who reflected them and their lifestyles.
Yes.
Because they often feel like the homeschooling experience is misunderstood. And this film showed them that there are people out there who actually understand what they're doing. And my daughter, when we came home, she was like, my favorite part was when Bethany knocks down that man and he says, "Where did you learn to fight like that?" And she replies, "I was homeschooled." um,
Yes.
and I wonder how much you came into this with the intention of changing those stereotypes or challenging those stereotypes about homeschooling, and where that commitment came from.
Sure. Really, so when Michaela and I started doing these different short films, we tried a whole bunch of different like genres and did, romantic comedy things and cop film things and stuff like that. And we did one pilot episode of what became Mount Hideaway. It was just a 1 hour film, and you just try as you're doing this, you have to try different things and see what you're good at and what jokes,
Mhm.
like especially with humor, what you can do, what works, what doesn't. And one of the things that we found was that because so many of the, especially with Michaela and I being connected to homeschooling and a lot of the other actors, a lot of what genuinely just came out of our voice is we were just saying, okay, what do we want to say in our movie? That just became a very natural part of the movie.
Mhm.
We, in being homeschoolers and deciding that, we just want to work homeschooling right into the plot. As soon as you do that, it was almost a natural progression of, well, if we're going to have homeschooled characters and a good movie plot thrives on the conflict in the plot, then part of that conflict has got to be some of the homeschoolers are going to experience some of those stereotypes and things like that.
Mhm.
And so we
Mhm.
actually had a really fun time sitting around and saying, okay, what would be the coolest way to kind of poke fun at this stereotype?
Yeah.
What would be a neat way to have, and for homeschoolers in the audience to be able to kind of live through that and have really the feeling that your daughter's describing of, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's me. I like that.
You did it really well.
Well,
We
thank
loved
you,
that part
thank
of it so
you.
much. We've never seen that in a movie before, so
I
it
don't
was
think it's
really
ever
cool.
been in a movie before.
It was
Of the
really
yeah,
cool.
cool.
I think, you look back and you read, older books and you see sort of naturally when lifestyles more were that, where people were educated at home more, you
Yes,
see
yeah,
those
yeah.
things come out, but not in sort of modern media. So it was really cool for them to experience
I am so I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to hear that, Sophie, because that's, when you do something like this and it's something that really nobody's ever done before, you wonder if it's going to work or, if anybody's going to get it. And just hearing that from your kids and folks,
that.
that's just makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. So now we come from a super creative and entrepreneurial family ourselves, which
Uh
is part of
huh.
why I'm so excited about what you're doing. And, we're in a lot of theater groups. We do community theater. My kids write plays and they put them on in our backyard every year with their friends.
I
But I
love
don't think,
that.
and they say, they'd love to write movies and make movies, but I don't know that we've ever actually thought about writing and producing full length independent films as like a legitimate career option for them. And you talk a lot in your marketing materials about how independent filmmaking is actually a viable business model for young entrepreneurs. And I'm wondering if you could just touch on how developments in streaming and technology are making it possible for these young aspiring filmmakers to create movies on their own terms and actually build careers out of it. Like not just for fun in their backyard, but actually take it somewhere.
So when I was growing up back in the '70s, it was like there were four TV channels and the movie theaters, and those were the only places that anybody could ever make a movie or a show and have that go anywhere, do anything. Now with streaming platforms like Amazon and Apple TV, and even with YouTube, that there are ways of monetizing that, and so that's one dynamic that has changed so drastically.
Hmm.
Another one is just the equipment for making film. It used to be when I started my career in radio and television and film, a camera that would produce pictures of camcorders, and none of that even existed in the '70s and '80s. And just the camera that was of a quality that you could make anything commercially viable was $20,000 or $50,000, and you couldn't
Mm.
even buy them unless you went to these special stores and all of that kind of stuff. And so now the technology for making films is so much more accessible. For
Mhm.
a very, the cameras, without going into all the crazy details, but you could spend just a couple of $1,000s or even less and get a perfectly valid camera for
Hmm.
this type of work. And the lighting with little battery operated but really good LED lights and the sound and
Mm.
all of that equipment, and you can order it on Amazon. I mean, it's not, it's,
Yep.
you don't even, it is so accessible. And then the third component of this that is, that used to be just impossible and full of roadblocks, but now still has some roadblocks, but is so much easier, is the marketing part of the
Right.
movie.
Right.
Because with a lot of these, and with any movie or TV show, marketing, or really with any product, it's like, I've got a great idea for a product. That's great. It could be a great product. Now, how are you going to actually get people to
Mhm.
find it and buy it? That part has become so much more, again, I wouldn't call it easy, but accessible
Yep.
through social media marketing. And
Mhm.
with things like using Facebook ads, where you can target people by things that they're interested in, so you can show your ad just to the people that would have a really high likelihood of liking it. One of the things I'm just starting to connect to as a marketer is Pinterest,
Mhm.
because Pinterest is a really great place to market a movie because it's basically a visual search engine.
Mhm.
And so from the ability to create the story in the first place, to being able to produce it in
Mhm.
a very professional way, to even getting the movie out to an audience, and the ability to monetize it with streaming platforms like Amazon. They give you a certain portion. So if people are renting a movie for $4.99 or buying it for $10.99, a portion of that goes straight back to the filmmaker.
Mm.
Or just like being a blogger, you can post it, you can, with YouTube or posting it in different places, there are ways of getting, putting advertising on that, making money from the advertising, and affiliate programs and things like that. And so I really think we're in a neat, opportune time in history where
Mm.
there's a desperate need for family friendly entertainment that's also really exciting and fun. And it's possible to make that and distribute them and make enough money that you could do more of it. And so I'm really hoping that, especially among the Christian and homeschool community, that this would just like take off as a thing.
Mm.
I call it community based filmmaking.
Mhm.
I'll also just throw out there, I live in the Virginia suburbs just outside of Washington, D.C. I'm originally from the Shenandoah Valley, which is just a short drive from where I am. And every once in a while, Hollywood will breeze into town, making a big Hollywood movie. And my area, we've got lots of colleges with film and theater programs, and a number of um, very talented and very well qualified actors and crew people, but there's nothing really for them to do. And when
Mm.
Hollywood breezes into town, you can be an extra and stand in the back of a crowd of 1,000 people, but they bring in their people and they take their people back with them. And so, this whole concept of community based filmmaking that tells the story of your home with people from that area, and then can be distributed. To be honest, I think this could even turn into, not to get into a whole different subject, but my wife and I also have a background in missions.
Mhm.
And the concept of going to a foreign country and telling the story of that area and using some of the money that comes in for, distributing it all over the world, using some of the money really as a for profit missions organization that's telling the story of towns or villages or areas anywhere in the world, that can be done now.
Hmm. I think I'm really seeing how you're perfectly situated as an individual to be sort of leading this initiative, because you do have that eclectic background. You can see how you're pulling in your skills from everything that you've done, and how God uses all of those different experiences to lead forward in this new vision, which is just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'm wondering, if kids or like a family wanted to pursue something like this, what kinds of, we've talked a lot of, the equipment, the marketing, the platforms, but what kind of sort of skills might they start working on from the beginning? I know everyone probably comes at it from, you can come at this from so many different angles, but,
Right.
if someone was going to be maybe diligent or methodical about it, and they
Sure.
they were starting out at the beginning of that vision, what might they start pursuing? And at the same time, I wonder if you have thought about, or if you're sort of offering that on sort of a national or international scale through all these channels that are available to us.
Sure. So the first question of where would I start? Really, the real place I would start is for whoever you are, whatever your skill set is, to really seek try to get in touch with yourself and figure out what God's true calling on your life is, and what are your gifts, what is your gift mix, what are you really good at, what are you motivated and passionate about, and what are the things that you just aren't really that interested in.
Hmm.
And once you kind of know, do I love the writing part, but I don't even care if I'm ever out on set. One of the things I love about this business is it has room for almost any skill set that you could think of. If you're like an
Hmm.
introverted writer who just likes to just make up stories in your room and doesn't really want to get out and be with people, that's great. We need those. If you're just a performer and love to be out in front of people and don't really care what the story is, you just love to perform, then pursue that. And once you're really in tune with what you're good at, start surrounding yourselves, study that. You don't necessarily need to be everything.
Right.
Um, and with the technical guys, I would say the one thing I would say, if you want to direct, learn to edit. And
Hmm.
that's something a lot of directors, a lot of folks, to be honest, want to direct, and they have not gotten the core skills to understand what shot selection and editing and how the story fits together. And so it is good you want to learn about all of the different pieces, but then find the part that you're really passionate about doing and start surrounding yourself with people that can fill in the other places. So the second part of the question of in terms of possibly teaching it, at least at this time, I don't really feel like that's what I am called to. And part of that reason is I know of some other folks that are actually already well established. I have one friend that I met at a homeschool convention about a year and a half ago. I'll put in a plug for him. His name is Justice McCraney, and he has a school called, I think it's called Tomorrow's Filmmakers. It's an online film school for homeschoolers. And so,
Perfect.
yes, exactly. And so, go talk to Justice about the classes. Also, depending on exactly what you want to do, there are so many really high quality online classes that are available. And as homeschoolers, we're kind of used to just going out and finding an online class. There are great online writing classes and directing and camera and
Mm.
all of those things. And so I feel like my calling is to make more movies and also to
Hmm.
encourage the community. But there are lots of options for people that want to learn, more of the specifics.
Thank you so much. I
Sure.
already know I'm gonna put this as soon as we're done recording this. I'm gonna play it for my kids because they're gonna be so excited to
Oh,
hear all these things. Okay, so going back to this movie, Mount Hideaway, it ends
Yes.
pretty quickly after, there's a
Little bit.
significant plot twist, and then
Uh-huh.
kind of ends. It's not necessarily your typical murder mystery in that sense, where the detective figures it out and everything wraps up kind of nicely. And so as soon as the credits started rolling, I said to the kids, "Oh, it looks like there's going to be a sequel." And one of them said, "Oh, could we watch a bit of it right now?"
Uh,
So do you have um don't disappoint a little girl. Do you have plans in place to produce a second installment?
so that's a really good question, and there are kind of two answers to that. Well, one, we absolutely have plans both to continue this movie and, or I'll put it this way, to continue this story,
Mhm.
because we had originally absolutely written this kind of as a series of movies,
Mhm.
kind of like on the Hallmark Mysteries channel, you'll have a series of movies, and sometimes you have 3 or 6 movies that kind of um, continue a plot line. And so that was absolutely the way we deliberately put that little cliffhanger in there. Um, Hopefully to see, and again, doing something like this for the first time, it was really to see if anybody cared, to see if anybody would say,
Mhm.
are you going to make another one? Or if you just don't know if things are going to work or not. We have absolutely gotten wonderful, delightful feedback, some being, I'd love to see another one, some that were just really mad at us for ending the movie with a little bit of a tease to a sequel. But come on, Star Wars does that. Lots of movies do that. So the answer is we want to really, really badly. We have to economically. We've got to sell enough copies of this one to be
Mhm.
able to afford to make any more.
Mhm.
Depending on how long that takes, one of the issues with the type of cast and crew that we used is kids grow up, people move away, and it's not always easy to pull the whole crew back together and make the same
Right.
sequel with the same people. And
Right.
so um, I'll just say we want to finish this story really badly. Um, we may possibly, if we're not able to do a sequel in movie form, one of the things that I'm starting to explore is actually completing the story in book form.
Okay.
So while there are a lot of movies based on books and books based on movies,
Yeah.
one of the options is to collaborate with an author to write a book that would kind of be Mount Hideaway, the whole story, and would tell some
Mm.
of the pre things about when the kids were in high school and the mystery that happened then, how they
Right.
led up to what the movie was, and then what you can tell is probably going to be happening
Yeah.
afterward.
Yeah.
That would make a really wonderful book as well as
Yes,
a movie. And
for sure.
so, and in most ways, books are a little quicker and easier to produce than a movie. And so that is an option that we're absolutely looking into as well. So
Mm.
we really hope that there will at least be enough interest in the movie to finish the story in book form. And as far as making movies, we absolutely want to continue to do that as a crew. And I'll say at least the outline of the whole Mount Hideaway story has absolutely been outlined and written. And so there is a story, at least in my head and on some Google Docs. And and I also am already talking to several of the folks about some new projects that would be in a very similar zone, but wouldn't necessarily be continuing the Mount Hideaway storyline. And part of that even has to do with, as we're marketing the movie, seeing just what parts of the movie people are connecting to.
Mhm.
Is it
Mhm.
the character development or specific parts and themes and things like that? We're seeing what really works, so that in the
Yeah.
future, whatever we're bringing to this community can be the most satisfying experience that we can give them.
Mhm. I think that's an important step for any kind of content creation. So,
Yeah.
sounds like a good plan, and we would love to read the book if it comes out.
Cool.
We definitely were wondering more about the backstory. So that could be its whole own book in itself, the high school
Yes.
years.
Yes, very much. And we were doing that deliberately. We were
Yep.
trying to create a world that people would want to come and visit again and
Hmm.
again. And
Hmm.
it blesses me so much that it sounds like we're on the right track for doing that. And so
I think
we
so.
absolutely want to keep moving in that direction.
So tell us where people can go if they want to learn more
Sure.
about Mount Hideaway and watch it with their families.
Sure. Our website is mounthideaway.com. Very easy to find. We also are doing a lot with our Facebook page, and
Okay.
you can find us on Facebook. And I would say that the biggest thing, if you're you're watching our conversation here and it sounds like something that you think would be good, the biggest thing you could do to help us is just buy or rent the movie. It's $4.99 to I think $10.99 on the different streaming platforms. And sharing on social media is just huge.
Hmm.
That really really helps us. Is And it's funny, as we started advertising the movie, we'll put an ad on Facebook, and you'll see in the comments of the ad people just tagging people's names that you can tell oh, they must be a homeschool, oh, they would like this, they would like this. The more that folks do that, that is really really helpful to us. Also, I would say, for the folks that have watched the movie, if you could give it gracious, encouraging comments or reviews in the reviews, and as many stars as you could comfortably give us, it would help us so much for folks to just buy the movie, to share the movie,
Yeah.
and also to give us the most encouraging reviews that you could on Amazon and the platforms. But
Okay.
yeah, so mounthideaway.com, and our Facebook page. We're also on Pinterest, trying to grow that. But if you just remember Mount Hideaway, we're pretty easy to find.
Okay. And just to clarify, here in Canada, it's not we can't watch
Ah,
it on Amazon, right? So we got
that
to do Google and iTunes. Is that right?
right? Yes, for Canada, Apple TV and iTunes, either of the Apple platforms, or Google Play.
Okay, perfect. So I will make sure that when I post this video that I'll include those links for all of those places, the website,
Yeah.
Facebook, social media, and the streaming platforms where they can find it. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to today to talk about this, and all of the other time that you've taken to put towards this initiative and to just follow this vision that God has given you. Because it's really blessing families and it's inspiring us and entertaining us at the same time. So you really hit the nail on the head there. And we
Thank
appreciate
you.
it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophie. That means so much to me and to our team.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye bye.